This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. I hope you're sitting down because we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Danny Iny from Miracy. How are you, my friend?
I am great. I'm very excited to be here, David. Thank you for having me.
Now, we are talking about many things related to an online business, online course, and your fantastic new book, which is called Teach Your Gift. Subtitle, super relevant, maybe more relevant than we would like it to be. How coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, and experts create online course business success in 2020 and beyond. Now, I'm going to give you some huge praise right up front. And if you don't know Danny, you need to know Danny. You need to follow Danny. You need to do everything Danny tells you to do. Because I have been following you probably since, 2013, 2012, something like that. And the one thing I can say about the way that you treat your community and your followers and your fans and your subscribers, you give such enormous, and by enormous, I mean not only big, but deep content, deep value, thorough, amazing, incredible, these mega blogs, these free resources that are truly better than many people pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for. I guess my first question is, dude, where do you get that kind of time? How do you do that? That the free content strategy that drives so much of your business, to me, it would seem overwhelming. Now, as a consumer, don't get me wrong, I love it. How do you make time to create all that amazing content that brings people into your fold?
Well, first of all, that's very kind and generous of you to say. I'm totally blushing. But in terms of where to find the time, you know what? We all have the same 24 hours in the day. And, some people just seem to get much more useful stuff done with it. When I look at what Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg do with their hours, they seem to get a lot more done than I do. So it doesn't feel that spectacular, but I think it all starts with thinking to yourself, what is the highest leverage thing you can do? And we all, underestimate what we can do in a year, but overestimate what we can do in a day. So if you have these big ambitious things that you want to accomplish and you try to get them done in a day, you're going to be disappointed. But if you set your sights on really ambitious things for a year and you make a plan and you enlist the help and support you need, it helps that, I have a team of 20 people too. You can really get a lot done if it's in service of the right goals.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the Danny Iny story. Where did you start? How did you come to this fantastic expertise that you have today? And give us some of the key milestones in building your own thought leadership business.
I like to say that I have been an entrepreneur for longer than my adult life. I quit school when I was 15 to start my first business, bounced around, did a few different kinds of businesses. And my last attempt at a big startup company was in 2007. It was a software company. We're building software that teaches kids how to read. And, we had some good early successes. The expert loved it. The kids loved it. That was all good. We raised some money from friends and family and other sources. But I was a very young and very inexperienced CEO in what in hindsight is one of the most complicated industries on the face of the earth. And by the time I figured out what I needed to do, 2008 rolled around, September of 2008, the markets crashed, everything just fell apart. And I walked away from that with a lot of debt and a lot of, it was a challenging time because all my investors were friends and family. I didn't want to tell them their money was gone. So I took the losses on myself personally. So I walked away from that with about $250,000 in personal debt. And for those listeners who have been through this process of a business falling apart on you, you know that it's not just financially rough, it's emotionally rough. It's like going through a really bad breakup. And after a really bad breakup, you're not ready to start dating again right away. You need to lick your wounds for a bit. So I was looking for, I still had bills to pay. I was looking for what can I do to make money that doesn't involve raising money or hiring a team or any of those kind of things. What can I do that would be kind of casual, right? I was looking for the rebound business. And I thought, well, I have, some marketing and strategy skills, so I could teach about those online. I was, I created a blog and I was publishing content. And one thing led to another. And here we are a decade later, and I actually have a team of 20 people. So, sometimes the rebound becomes the one. But in terms of how I stumbled onto this expertise, in 2011, I was working to grow my reach and grow my business. And I stumbled onto this strategy that worked well for me to get exposure and get leads and all that back in the day. And so I did a bunch of that and it worked really well. And people started to notice.
Just to be specific, was that your guest blogging strategy?
Yeah, that was my guest posting strategy. That was the Freddy Krueger of blogging days. So people started reaching out and saying, Danny, can you teach me how to do what you're doing? And my first reaction was, no, I can't. That's not my business, which is not a good answer. That was my reaction for a while. But thankfully, people kept asking. And eventually I came around and I was like, all right, I guess I'll do this. So I created a course teaching people how to guest post for major blogs and get exposure that way. And I rolled out the course and I did very well. And people followed the program. And they got great results. And they started asking me, basically, now that I know how to get a post written and on a major blog, does that mean I have everything I need to grow my business? And I said, well, of course not. Why would you think that? There's a lot more to it than that. And so they kept asking the questions. That led to a second course, which was about audience building. It was called the Audience Business Masterclass. And, we launched it and it did very well again. Thousands of people signed up. We made millions of dollars. It was great. And I started getting a new set of questions. People started reaching out and saying, Danny, I've taken a whole bunch of online courses and I never get results from them. But I take your courses and I do. Can you teach me how to build online courses the way you do it? And that was in 13, when we first pivoted to the idea of, all right, what if we teach people about online courses? And we've just been getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that. We've done it for, 7 years now, more than $10 million of revenue generated, many thousands of students helped. There are tons of courses out in the wild produced by our students. It's become what we do. I've written multiple books on the topic now. So I guess that's the grande version of the story.
And let me also just, again, the Wayback Time Machine, it was maybe around that same time, maybe 2014, 2015, but you can tell me because based on this story, you'll know what I'm talking about. You released a set of free videos. And along with the free videos were some launch emails. And it wasn't just like the first one or two launch emails. It was all the launch emails all the way until open the cart, close the cart, everything. And the one thing that you said that I implemented and I got some amazing results from, which I'll tell you about in a second, you called it the first class discount. You remember this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was, okay, hey, gang, right? Subscribers, fans, email people. I am doing a brand new program and here's why it's awesome and here's what it is and here's what it works. And we're doing a first class discount. Now, it's not first class like on an airplane. It's first class like this is the first class of people going through it.
Like the X-Men.
Exactly. And I remember which program it was even. It was my program called Solo Sales Success, which is sales training for solopreneurs. But I followed that email sequence and we got, I think, 13, 14 people in there. And it was like $797. So I'm looking at my PayPal account going, this Danny Iny guy, he's got something going on here because I just literally, it was plug and play. Now you have to, let's give people credit, right? They have to have a little bit of a list. They have to know a little bit what they're doing. They have to be coachable. They can't say, well, I'm smarter than Danny. Let me change the templates this way. Don't change anything Danny tells you to do. Just do it. But I'll tell you, that was one of my early programs. And I just followed that sequence. And you were so incredibly generous. I'm like looking at this going, I printed it out. And it's like 20 some pages. I mean, it's no joke. And it was just incredibly successful. So when you say, hey, other people have a lot of online courses, I'm not getting results. But Danny, when I take your course, I get results. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm here as a firsthand witness. Let's talk about the book because I love the title. And you talk about so many smart things in the book. Teach your gift. There's a lot of people listening. Say, okay, I'm a speaker, I'm a consultant, I have a topic, I have a niche. I get it. Other people are listening going, I'm just not that special. I'm not Danny Iny. I'm not David Newman. I don't have a topic. I don't have a niche. I don't have any expertise. That's what they say. That's what they think. What would you say to that person who's really hungry to have an online business and build an online course? They have a lot of interests, but they don't feel or they don't think they have a lot of expertise right now.
Well, so I love the question. And I would start by saying that I applaud the instincts of I need to find something I'm really good at in order to teach. There's this, truism in the internet marketing world that, if you read 5 books on a topic, you know more about it than anyone but a real expert, and that makes you a de facto expert. And that doesn't sit well with real experts. And when I hear that, I always think to myself, there's a difference between reading 5 books and understanding 5 books, but whatever. So the instinct of I need to really know my stuff in order to teach, that's a good instinct. That said, I don't think someone listening to this should be comparing themselves to me or you today, not because I'm so special, not because you're so special, but because, I've got like a 10-year head start on whoever's listening to this, presuming they're starting from scratch. So you don't want to compare, your beginning to someone else's middle, because you're always going to come up short. So I think it is very important to have meaningful expertise, but recognize that your expertise is not going to be as pronounced now as it will be in a decade, because the decade should have some kind of impact. So the real question is not, are you the world's leading authority on fill in the blank? The question is, do you have an expertise that is meaningful? And when I say meaningful, I mean that if someone comes to you and needs help with this, you are confident you can help them. You're confident you can get them an outcome. And do you have enough interest in this subject area, not to commit to doing it forever, but that if you had the opportunity to do it forever and you liked it, you could see going deep enough so that 10 years from now, you could be the world's leading authority on the topic. Actually, I really love this example. If you read Jim Collins' work on flywheels, he talks about the example of Amazon's flywheel. It's like the best known flywheel in the world. And one of their things is, rapid delivery, right? You can get things instantly. And it's like, wow, Amazon they're just amazing at it. I can click an order, some parts of the world, 2 hours later, whatever I want is there, right? Unless it's toilet paper today. But, they can move super, super fast. But I remember living in Israel 15 years ago and ordering a book, and it took 6 to 8 weeks for it to arrive, right? And so the early iterations on that flywheel, they're not that impressive, right? But they knew that they were going to work at that and turn that flywheel and turn that flywheel. So it's not about what makes you so spectacular today. It's about what makes you good enough to legitimately help people today, that if you keep leaning into it for the next 5 years, then you can really stand out.
Yeah, such great advice. Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. Let's blow up some more myths. And you and I are on the same wavelength with so many of these great ideas that are in the book. You blow up the concept of passive income. Anytime someone comes to me and says, "Oh, David, you're really lucky. You have this whole passive income business." I'm like, that's funny because I get up at 5 a.m. and I go to bed at 9 and I've got a team of 10 people. It doesn't seem very passive to us. Talk about what you mean by the passive income myth.
I mean, there's a lot more, and it's in the book, and people should read it. I hope. But a lot of people have this idea of like, what I like about online courses is that I can create passive income. I can make money while I sleep. There's this joke about, what's an internet entrepreneur? It's someone who'll work 120 hours so he can make money while he's asleep, right? Like, that's not really what we should be going for. There are edge cases where you can get passive income. So let's unpack, what does it take for you to have passive income? Right? Passive income requires 2 ingredients. First, you've got to be selling something cheap, right? Low price. And it's got to be low price because if you're selling something high price, the sales process isn't going to be passive, right? People don't spend thousands of dollars without talking to a person and seeing a lot of material. And it takes work to make that kind of sale. So if you're going to sell it passively, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be, probably a few $100s, like an impulse buy. And it's also got to be cheap because if people spend a lot of money, they expect a lot in return. So the fulfillment won't be passive either. So the first ingredient is a low price. The second ingredient is high volume. Because if you multiply a low price by a low volume, it might be passive, but it's not much income. So what's the point? Right? So for meaningful passive income, it's got to be a low price and high volume. Now, the challenge then is, how can you get high volume? Right? And the traditional things you usually do for marketing are off the table. So when you think about how you would go about your marketing, really easy kind of back of the napkin math is you're going to take the retail price of your course and you're going to divide it in 3. So let's say you're selling a $3,000 course, right? 1,000 of those dollars will go towards fulfillment. So if you pay me $3,000, I can pay $1,000 to send you great stuff in the mail and to pay a coach that's going to support you and all that great stuff. Another $1,000 goes towards contribution profit. So paying off your overhead, and if you have enough volume, actual profit in your pocket. And the last $1,000 is for customer acquisition. That's the stuff you can do to get customers. So running ads, paying salespeople, going to events, whatever it is that you're going to do for your marketing. And if you're selling a premium course, which will not be passive for all the reasons we said, but it's still good money, right? There's a lot you can do with, hundreds or thousands of dollars to acquire a customer. That's great. But if you're selling a very cheap course, right? If you want to sell a, $150 course, you have $50 to spend to acquire a customer. $50 just doesn't go very far. You can't do very much with that. So the only way you can have passive income in this model of low price, high volume is if essentially you're getting unreasonably cheap traffic. So if you have an unfair advantage, like you own the front page of Google for your search topic because you've just been around for 20 years, or you're a celebrity and you've got like 5 best-selling books and 20,000 or 200,000 people on your email list, right? In those cases, you can build passive income because you're not really paying to acquire the customers. They're like, the leads are already there, right? That's the Kylie Jenner strategy for building a business, right? Kylie Cosmetics is like a $5 billion company, but that's because she had like a bazillion followers built in. She didn't have to acquire those customers from scratch. So if you have those unfair advantages working for you, you can do the passive income thing. But for most people, since you're going to have to acquire customers reasonably, you're just not going to be able to make the math work, and you have to sell something more premium, which is a really good opportunity. And there's a ton of room to build a great business and have real impact and transformation, right? That's the business I run. The business I run is not passive income by any means, but it's a great business and we make lots of money and make a lot of impact, and I'm very happy with it. It's just not passive income.
Right. Amen. And you also talk about the different kinds of courses. And the kind that we land on, of course, is the kind that gets results that you call the transformational course. Talk about, shovelware or crappy courses or, because here's the other thing I get on the way to transformational courses. They say, but Danny, there's a course just like mine on Udemy and it's $59. So how can I possibly compete with that? What I tell people is, listen, there's always going to be somebody cheaper and there's always going to be somebody better. And you need to make your mark in with this transformational concept that it's very unique the way you describe it in the book. What is a transformational course? And thus, why should we not be worried about the cheap courses on Udemy that are, maybe 1/10 or 1/20th of the price that we'd like to charge?
So there's 2 kinds of courses on Udemy, and you can substitute Udemy with Masterclass or Creative Live or any of these platforms, right? LinkedIn Learning. They're the ones that are cheap that a lot of people are buying, and they're the ones that are cheap that nobody's buying. So the ones that are cheap that nobody's buying, you don't have to worry about it. It's not like, nobody's buying it, so who cares, right? But the ones that are cheap that a lot of people are buying, they have an unfair advantage. They're sitting there at the top of Udemy, or they have a celebrity name, so everybody's looking for it. They have one of these like passive income unfair advantages. So let's say that you're not going to have that opportunity. That's fine because, as you alluded, there are 2 kinds of courses. So there are information-only courses. The classic real-world archetype for an information product is a book, right? So imagine this. You go to a bookstore, you find the book that purports to have the information that you're looking for. You pick it up, you take it to the register, you pay for it. Not a lot of money, because books are not expensive, because it doesn't cost much to replicate that information one more time. And then once you pay for it, you walk out of the bookstore and nobody owes you anything. Not the bookstore owner, not the author, not the publisher. You've got what you paid for it, now you're on your own. And you do with it what you want to do with it, right? The course analog to that is all these passive income type $50, $100, $150 courses. They're information, they're kind of edutainment, and that's fine. What you do with them is up to you, you're on your own. And that's perfectly fine, right? And there's a lot of good room in our lives for information. I read tons of books. I love that content, right? Information is great for adding knowledge to existing skills. It's great for stretching your horizons, showing you what's possible. But information is not good at imparting competence, right? We don't get good at things by reading books. We learn about things. We don't learn how to do things. We don't develop ability. For that, we need another kind of course, which is transformation, right? And the real world analog to that is a university course. So you register for a university course, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. And part of that is because of, educational inflation and market forces. And there's other stuff that goes into that. But a lot of it is that it costs a lot to deliver that outcome, right? You're going to have the professor, you're going to have the teacher's assistants. There's a lot that goes into it. And you certainly have to show up and do the work. If you don't show up, if you don't do the work, you're going to fail the class. Nobody's going to care. But if you show up and you do the work, it is reasonable for you to expect that the instructor, the teacher's assistants, the institution will be there in partnership with you to help you succeed. It's going to be a collaborative effort. So it's reasonable for you to have that expectation. So in the world of online courses, that's where we talk about courses that are not just about here's the information, good luck to you, right? Because when we talk about a transformative learning experience, there are 3 steps in the learning journey. The first step is the consumption of new information. So I read the book or article, I watch the video, I listen to the audio, I attend a lecture, and I get exposed to these new ideas, and that's great. The second step is application. I take what I learned and I apply it, either theoretically, like I do worksheets and exercises, or practically, I go out and do things in the real world. And then the third step is integration. That's where the application is met with feedback about how it worked, and I can iterate and evolve and get better. And that's where the learning gets internalized. And that feedback can just be from the world. I'm learning how to skateboard, and so the feedback is from gravity and the concrete. Or it can be from a coach, from an instructor. And that's where it tends to be more nuanced, and the learning can be more rapid. So a course that delivers that kind of opportunity for application and then integration is how we actually get good at things. So if we think about Masterclass, I'm a huge fan of the content on Masterclass, and I think it falls into the category of edutainment. If I took, for example, the screenwriting course on Masterclass with Aaron Sorkin, right? He wrote The West Wing, he wrote A Few Good Men, great, great writer. He does great work. And I didn't get good at screenwriting by watching it, but I'm a writer. I picked up some tricks. It was interesting. But for someone who is thinking about, I want to teach screenwriting, right? You're not going to compete with Aaron Sorkin and the distribution of Masterclass. It's not going to happen. So saying like, I want a $50 or $100 course, I want to compete in that space, it's like, it's not going to happen. But that said, there are a lot of students who are shopping around. Maybe they took Aaron Sorkin's masterclass. They're like, this was great. I want to go deeper. I want feedback. I want to make my scripts better. Aaron Sorkin's not available to do that. He's got other things to do. So that's your opportunity. Don't try to compete on that $100 course, but develop the $2,000 course where it's not just a bunch of videos and a membership, right? They can do work, they can submit, you can help them. There are real outcomes you're going to help them achieve. And it's worth it for them to pay that money because you're delivering a real outcome.
Huge, really, really huge. You also talk about the whole concept of creating a course that is head and shoulders above the competition, so that there may be other courses like your course, but the marketing layer and the validation and this co-creation concept where people feel invested and you've really put your finger on the pulse of the marketplace, where it's like they see the course, they go, oh my gosh, this is the course I've been looking for. But you designed it that way because you were open to feedback and surveys and a pilot group. Talk a little bit about how do we get our audience to put their thumbprint on the course to help us create exactly what they would want to invest in.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the campaign that you alluded to earlier. That's basically what that campaign does. So it's actually based on some really interesting behavioral science research on something called the IKEA effect. And this is coming from the work of Dan Ariely and his team. And so the work that they did is they did this experiment where they had people come in and build different things, including IKEA furniture, hence the name, the IKEA effect. And when they were done, they were invited to share with the researchers, what do you think this thing you built is worth? What should people pay for to buy it? So they wrote down those price tags, took the people out of the room, brought in a fresh group of people. These were the evaluators. And the evaluators were asked, same thing. What do you think these things are worth? These are things that the evaluators didn't build. They were just already there. And what they found is that if you build something, you value it more, right? The people who built it put a higher price tag. They did a variation on this I thought was fascinating, where they had people build IKEA furniture. And, regular, normal people. So I have some IKEA furniture in my house, and I built it myself for the most part. And, this piece is screwed in a little too tight, and that piece is a little bit cracked. Like, it's good, but it's like, it's 90%, 95%. It's not perfect. And then they had expert IKEA builders. This is a profession. People who build IKEA furniture for a living build the same piece of furniture. And they found that people were willing to pay more for the imperfect pieces they built themselves than for the perfect pieces that an expert built, that someone else built. So people want to get invested in what you're creating. So the idea is that rather than go to your audience and say, hey, I built this course, do you want it? And that's a heavy marketing lift to sell anything to a stranger. It takes work, but it's especially hard to sell a course for the first time. because it's not something tangible. It's not a toaster. It's not a sandwich. It's not something that they can see. And so when you say, I've got this course, the first two questions that people are going to ask are, who else has taken this course and what have their results been? And it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how much of an expert you are. The first time you sell a course, the answer is going to be nobody and nothing, right? Because you've never sold it before. And so you want to counteract that challenge. And so instead of saying, hey, I built this, do you want it? You invite them into the process. You tell them, hey, I'm thinking about building this course. What would you like to see in it if I were to build it? Would you be interested if I were to do it? Okay, I listened to all the feedback. I'm building this course the way you said. I'm enrolling it for the first 50 people. I want you to come in and you're going to get a discount, but I want your feedback to make it better. Right? So they become co-creators of the experience with you. You get their feedback to make it really great. And you can kind of pay attention to what's working, what's not. You can tweak the process and keep leveling up. And this is vitally important. 15 years ago, the landscape was super nascent. There were not a lot of courses out there. You could build a pretty mediocre course and still do okay because there just wasn't a lot out there and traffic was unreasonably inexpensive. It was easier than it should be. These days, it's not unreasonably hard. It's just no longer unreasonably easy, right? Just like, you can't open any other kind of business, do a mediocre job and expect to do well. The same applies here. You have to give it a good effort and do a good job. So this is a really good way to get that feedback and be able to stay ahead of the curve.
I got to tell you, so many great ideas. And this is not a long book. This is not a long book. It is like a dense, flourless chocolate cake. It is thick, it is rich, but it is short book, but so many great ideas. What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Let me ask you one more question that I get a lot, and I don't really have a good answer. So it's not a loaded question like, oh, let's see if Danny knows the answer. People look to me and they say, well, David, you have it easy because you sell to solopreneurs. And they think that courses only sell to solopreneurs, or it's kind of the B2C model. And if I'm selling to IBM, I'm selling to mid-sized companies. I'm even selling to small companies, right? I'm selling to small entrepreneurial 10, 20-person companies. I guess I'm not in the online course business. With your students and with your method, talk a little bit about that B2B sale if we're selling to people that work inside of a corporation or a larger organization, and we're not just selling to solopreneurs?
Oh, I love this question. I have so much to say about this. So first of all, I can say that, of all the thousands and thousands of students we work with, probably 25 or 30% of them sell into B2B. So there's definitely a B2B market for e-learning, for online courses. The process of selling to them is a little bit different, right? So building a great course, it's going to work the same way. The process of selling is different. So where a lot of people kind of, fall down in trying to sell to B2B is they try to say, okay, if I'm selling to consumers, then I'll, do some pre-launch content and I'll open the cart on Thursday and I'll tell them they've got until Tuesday to sign up and the cart's closing on Tuesday. And then they try to do the same thing to B2B. And that doesn't work well because you can shift the modality through which people interact fairly easily. So if someone is used to, reading a physical printed letter, they can read a sales page. If they're used to attending a seminar in person, they can attend a webinar. You can shift those modalities. It's not that hard, right? And if you look at the B2C kind of launch, all those campaigns, that's what they're doing. They're doing the kind of promotion you would do anyway. They're just shifting a modality. What you can't do is shift a buying process. So if the organization's buying process is that I'm going to ask you what I need, you're going to submit a proposal, I'm going to shop it around, get approval from 3 different stakeholders, then I'll take it in for final approval. They're not going to shortcut all that just because you said the cart's closing on Tuesday, right? That's not going to work. So you still have to sell the way they expect to be sold to. But in a B2B context, that's fine because you're not selling one course for $2,000. You're selling 10 or 50 of them, right? So the math makes it worth the extra effort. Now, I will say that, historically, it has been easier to sell to consumers. And the reason for that is that consumers tend to be it's just easier for them to take action. There's less machinery working against them, right? But that is changing. It has been changing for years. And it's been accelerated dramatically. As we're recording this, we're in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, right? Everybody's suddenly been forced to work from home. And a lot of organizations, they have 2 kinds of trainings that they go through. The trainings that are mandatory. for regulatory or compliance or functional reasons. And they can't say, well, we don't want to do that anymore. They just have to do it. And so now they can't do it in person. They're rushing online. And other trainings that are not mandatory, but desirable, right? We need to level up our skills. We need to learn how to do things. And they still want those too. There are two reasons why people don't want to do an online course. There's the legit reason, which is it won't work very well, right? And some things just don't work as well online. And some online courses just are not designed well enough to enable that potential. And we're seeing a lot of advancement in that area. And in some cases, that's true. But mostly the reason people don't want to do online courses is inertia, right? It's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable. What's this online thing? I don't know how to work the Zoom, right? There's a lot of that. And the thing is that, because of coronavirus, everyone's kind of been shoved into the deep end. It's like, you're not comfortable with it? Well, too bad. This is how business works now. And there's this really interesting study, and I forget where I read it. I'd love to give credit, but they were looking at commute patterns of people in London. So, some metro station, like on the public transit, was closed, and they could see how people commute by their phone. So, of course, the metro station's closed, people change their commute. And then the metro station opens again, and they found that 90% of people went back to their original commute, but 10% of people stuck with the new commute. Apparently, for months or years, they'd been taking the less efficient, less optimal commute. They just never tried a different way. And I think what we're going to see now is that because a lot of people were forced to try, not everyone's going to stay online, but a lot of people are going to be like, hey, this actually works a lot better. I like what this enables. I think I'm going to stick with this. And it's going to be a lot more than 10%. So, as this crisis is happening, like I've got students messaging me every day and they're like, I've been banging on people's doors trying to get them to buy online courses. All of a sudden my phone is ringing off the hook. Right. And I'm talking about B2B specifically. So it's not exactly the same, especially the marketing has to function a little bit differently. But there's definitely an opportunity in B2C and B2B. And they're both growing, but B2B is probably growing faster right now.
And there's also a great opportunity for licensing, right? So you can do a license for your course, and literally you can say, okay, we have 1,000 employees here. Every one of our employees needs your program. How much for 1,000, or how much for a site license, or how much for a worldwide unlimited internal use license? So we can just get all of our people into your program. And those can be 6-figure or multi-6-figure deals.
They can be
I've seen
7-figure
them.
deals.
I have colleagues who have done them, and that's a real thing.
They can be 7-figure deals, right? And that's where, people going into B2B, they're like, this is where people stumble again. They're like, well, how can I do this with like ads to a lead magnet, to a webinar, to a sales page? And I'm like, you can't. And they're like, then it's not passive, it's hard work. And it's like, yeah, but you're not working hard for the $2,000. You're working hard for the $200,000. So it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Well, as we start to wrap up, Danny, I've got 2 final questions for you. The final question is, where can we link people up? What do you have coming up? We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about some goodies and some resources that we can put into their hands. But even before we get to that, my second to last question is, if folks were to take one central idea about online courses, the potential, the opportunity, what do you hope that one central take-home idea is?
So it's a 2-part central take-home idea. Like the first part is, it's a real endeavor. It's not something to be taken lightly. I don't think people should say, I'm going to create an online course because, I can do it in an afternoon. It's an easy way to make money, because that's not how it is. It's a real thing to undertake. But as long as people approach this with kind of the appropriate amount of humility, I'm bringing a lot of value and expertise and skill to the table, and I've got to learn how to do this and do it well. There has never been a better time to do this. There has never been a better and bigger need. So, anyone who's got real expertise and value to share, and you'd love to be able to share it with more than the people you can get in front of, whether that's because you're constrained by time, by travel, by quarantine, right? Whatever the reason, there's a huge value in taking your knowledge and packaging it in a way that can help people without you having to be directly there. It's value for them. It's value for you. It's value for your family. It's a great, great thing to do.
Tremendous. Could not agree more. Now, where can we send people? Where can we link them up to directly under this episode at thespeakingshow.com? We've got resources, we've got links, we've got books, we've got things that you can go and do. Danny, where can we send people to get more Danny Iny brilliance?
Let's keep it really simple, actually. So at teachyourgiftbook.com, There's a whole bunch of information about the book. It'll link to, the appropriate place to buy it in your region. We're going to be doing some fun stuff around the book launch. So depending on when you're listening to this, there might be additional resources or training opportunities. And you'll find whatever is relevant and current right now at teachyourgiftbook.com.
Awesome. Danny, you are a master. I am going to follow you even more closely than I have before, and I highly, highly recommend the book and the program and all the fantastic ancillary resources and downloads and training you have around Teach Your Gift. You the man, buddy. Thank you for being on the speaking show.
David, you're very kind. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure, and it's really been a privilege. So thank you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.